Surely at least one of the promoted teams to the Premier League is going to stay up this season. So the question is, who's going to go down? Let's talk about it today. Hello guys, and welcome back to yet another video. We are catching up yet again on the relegation sandwich. We love the drama down at the bottom end of the Premier League. Well, at least we do when it's exciting. Over the last couple of years, of course, as we've touched on before, the promoted teams have gone down with not a massive amount of fight. But look at Sunderland in 7th place, and look at Leeds and Burnley, both above the bottom 3 for now as well. Very interesting, I must say. So who's going to go down? Share your thoughts down in the comments. I know right now it might be easy to pick Wolves, but could it be West Ham? Could it be Forest? We're going to talk about all of these teams through the video. Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to drop a like on the video. Go on, it takes 2 seconds. Let's go for 1,000 likes. And please do subscribe if you haven't already. We will be catching up on the Premier League relegation battle almost every week, just because it's looking very fascinating as things stand. So before we get into it, let's just set a couple of rules. There are some teams in the middle of the table that I'm just going to colour in, just because I don't see them realistically being in a relegation fight. Okay, if Man United lose their next 3 or 4 in a row, we can maybe bring them back into this conversation. But for now, Palace, Brighton, Everton, United, Newcastle, Villa, we're just going to leave them to one side. Let's start with Sunderland then in 7th place. And yes, I know some people might be watching thinking, well, why are we talking about Sunderland? There's a more realistic chance that Man United will get relegated. Possibly. I'm not going to massively disagree with that. But as they are a promoted team, let's still just treat Sunderland with a little bit of caution. I'm sure although the Sunderland fans will be absolutely loving life at the minute, they won't want to get carried away, because the Premier League is very unforgiving for the promoted teams and things can turn around like that. However, another great win in another huge game down at the bottom last weekend. They've just beaten Wolves 2-0, which has put them up to 7th. And it's left Wolves bottom of the table. And the significant thing is that 12-point gap. You know, if Sunderland can keep a gap over one of the established Premier League teams, that might be what it takes to stay up. Also, yeah, they need to stay ahead of Leeds and Burnley, but that's 3 teams then. Leeds, Burnley, Wolves, can you keep a gap over those? Look, I've said I reckon maybe 38 points to survive this season. So with 30 games to go, Sunderland need 6 wins, 6 draws, and they still would be allowed 18 defeats to get to 38 points. It sounds very realistic, doesn't it? Look, let's try and offer some balance. Sunderland have very difficult games coming. That's not to say their games have been easy so far, but they're less winnable, the ones that are coming. I think that's the fairest way to describe it. Look at their next 5, Chelsea, Everton, Arsenal, Fulham, Bournemouth, and then in December they have Man City twice. I think they've got Liverpool in there. So it's going to get difficult, but this is a very, very good start. 6 points above a point per game, and the performances are very viable. Roofs, as we've touched on, brilliant in goal. That back line of Mukele, Ballard, Alderete, really solid. And they chip in with goals between them as well. And then Captain Xhaka and the brilliant management of Regis Lebris, the adaptability of this Sunderland team. I'm starting to get excited that we might actually get one of the promoted teams staying up. Share your thoughts, Sunderland fans. But yeah, they're certainly putting the pressure on everyone else. And that includes Fulham. Let's talk about Fulham. Are Fulham in a relegation battle? They're definitely not going to be anyone's favourites to go down. They're definitely not mine. I still think they could be about 13th or 14th come the end of the season. But as they are on 1 point per game and they've lost their last 3 games in a row, I still think we can keep one eye on them. I think goal scoring is a bit of a problem for Fulham. They've scored 8 in 8, and you know, you're going to struggle to get wins unless you're keeping clean sheets there, of course. Look, they've got the quality. Obviously, Marco Silva is a very established manager who's always sort of bred success at Fulham. But you've got Iwobi, you've got Jimenez, you've got Harry Wilson. But unless they're firing, they're going to be languishing. I don't see them as a team that's necessarily going to be sucked right in, but they might be treading water next to the relegation battle, which means they're always not too far away from it. So, Fulham fans, share your thoughts. You look at the next couple of games, they've got Wolves and Sunderland at home in the next 5. Now, if you win those, you're looking all right. If you don't win those, then maybe you're not. Let's talk about Leeds. Not a good result, was it? I mean, look, they're still 15th. If we're going to try and take some positives, they're still on a point per game. However, that defeat to Burnley is a damaging one because it's an opportunity missed because it was a winnable game. Not to say that Leeds should have won and Burnley should have lost, because that game, for me, always could have gone either way. The frustrating thing is, most weeks we're coming back and we're saying, oh, the underlying numbers are really good for Leeds, but they're still not winning a lot at the minute, are they? You know, they were unlucky, I suppose, against Bournemouth with the late goal. Maybe they should have got something from Tottenham. Maybe they should have got something yesterday. But they've not really got the goal scorers, have they? Who is going to step forwards and get the goals for Leeds? And unless someone does that, they're not going to be able to get away from the bottom three. That's my concern. I still think they've had a pretty encouraging start, and I want to try and give some encouragement to the Leeds fans that what I've seen so far does suggest that they could stay up. But that defeat yesterday, and you look at those games coming, West Ham is huge. As far as Daniel Farke is concerned, I've seen some Leeds fans very mixed on social media. Some have Farke in, a couple of Farke out. He's kind of on a tightrope. I don't think he's done anything drastically wrong so far, but when you go under a point per game, say if they lose the West Ham game at home, that's when the pressure really does crank up. So really got to try and win that West Ham game. And then if you win the West Ham game, you're up to 11 points from 9 games. As I say, you're walking on a tightrope. It's just so, there's just not much margin for error down here. That said, still 15th. 16th, Brentford. We can just quickly skip over them because they have that game in hand against West Ham on Monday. That's why I've put their next 6. Look, if they're going to get to 38 points, they still need to win another 8 games and get another 7 draws on there. Igor Thiago, of course, with his 4 goals, that's a real positive. You need goal scorers down here. You also need a good keeper, and I think Kelleher is a great keeper. The underlying numbers are not great. I think they're actually overperforming a little bit compared to Leeds' XG and Wolves' XG. The fixtures coming up are difficult. I mean, yes, you've got West Ham away and Burnley at home in the next 6. But look at those 4 games in the middle there for Brentford. Very tough. So maybe they might get sucked back in and then climb back out again. So you could see Brentford being in this discussion at least up until Christmas. Or can they get a few surprise wins? Next up then, Burnley. They're above the bottom 3. Has everyone written them off too early? Yeah, possibly. And we can definitely make the argument that Burnley have had a difficult start. If they win a couple of those next few games, they might be all right, you know. Look, they're still below a point per game, and I like them at home. Really good win over Leeds, by the way. Ugachukwu, by the way, was a signing I was quite excited for Burnley when they got him, and obviously he got a goal. The interesting thing with the next 5 games is there's 3 winnable games in there, but they're all away from home. And they've got 2 very difficult ones at home, but Burnley are better at home. So Scott Parker's got to pull some results out on the road. You know, of course, home form is crucial, but got to get a few points on the road. But Burnley might have a chance, you know. Has everyone written them off too early? Maybe. Let's say they've got a chance. They definitely do. Nottingham Forest. Yeah, I'm going to say it. They are in a relegation battle right now. You know, there's no getting away from it. They are in the bottom 3. I know it's early, and the squad quality of this team suggests they shouldn't be going down. We saw the capability of this team last season, finishing 7th and flirting with the title when they were chasing down Liverpool last season, of course. But I just think there's no momentum at the minute. Of course, let's talk about the big news, by the way. They lost 3-0 to Chelsea, and 5 minutes later, Ange Postecoglou is sacked. I'm not surprised. Obviously, I said before the game that I think he's under massive pressure, and you can't go this many games without winning. I know he's only been there a month, but considering the opposition they've played, I think he has to go. I do. I agree with this decision. And now it's about getting the right manager, because if you get the right one, Forest fly away from trouble. If you don't, they could be in a bit of bother. And it's strange to say that, but they have lost all the momentum. And it's actually really sad, because this was meant to be an exciting season for Forest. They're back in Europe. They're back where they belong. You know, what an exciting season last year was. Can it be even better this time? Well, maybe, maybe not. First priority, though, get away from that bottom 3. Share your thoughts, Forest fans. I'm usually full of praise. And if you get the right manager, I still think Forest should be all right. This is a good club with a good squad of players. But right now, they're not in a good moment, and I'm just going to say it how it is. West Ham. Okay, they've got that game in hand against Brentford coming up. And look, if they beat Brentford on Monday, then all of a sudden there's nothing in this. They'll be level on points with Burnley and Brentford. And it'll make things very tight, won't it? But they've really got to win that because they've got Leeds away afterwards, which they really need to avoid losing. And then it's Newcastle. Then it's Burnley, winnable. Bournemouth away, Liverpool at home. It's a bit mixed, but there's at least 3 in the next 4, which Nuno will be targeting. And let's give him a bit of time. He's not been there very long. The early signs for Nuno at West Ham have been okay. Can he get the most out of those forward players whilst also keeping them tight at the back? Because, once again, in terms of quality, West Ham shouldn't go down. But in terms of how they've played so far this season, they definitely could. But that was mainly under Graham Potter, wasn't it? As I say, the fixtures are opening up a little bit. Can you get Jared Bowen, Paquetá, Callum Wilson, Fulkrug, Somerville? Can you get them firing? Because you need goals, West Ham, to get you out of this. Let's move on to the final team, Wolves. Oh dear. I mean, I know they started last season slow, but the difference this time is Sunderland, Leeds and Burnley are doing all right, in particular Sunderland, and that leaves Wolves in deep trouble. Look at what they need to get from their next 30 games. They need to at least win 10 out of 30 with 6 draws in there. They need to perform like a mid-table team throughout the rest of the season just to stay up. The next 5, Burnley at home. Oof, you have to win that. You cannot draw that. You have to win that. Then it's Fulham away. Interesting. Can you pull Fulham into the conversation? Then Chelsea, Palace and Villa. Difficult. They need at least 4 points from the next 2, don't they? Pereira under all sorts of pressure. The underlying numbers, I think we've touched on this before, suggest Wolves aren't the worst team in the league. But results-wise, they are. They've lost to Leeds. They've lost to Sunderland. If they lose to Burnley, I think they'll be done. I know we will only be 9 games into the season, but I think that'll be it. I think they'll have to pack their bags and go down to the Championship. Wolves need to beat Burnley. The pressure's on. The pressure is on. That wraps it up then, guys. Comment down below with your 3. Which 3 teams are going down? Get in the comments and let me know which 3 you're going with. I've said for a while I'm worried about Wolves and Burnley. Could they be sucked in still? They're putting up a fight and Leeds, they're on a tightrope. I think the West Ham Brentford game on Monday is crucial as well. So we're going to have to wait and see. And it also comes down to who Forest bring in as manager. All of this chaos is why we love the Premier League. Honestly, it's fantastic. Unless you're involved, then it is nail-biting. Like I say, share your thoughts. Drop a like. Make sure to subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone. Peace out.